Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Iowa recently received 2 commitments at the same position group. And that was not coincidental, or I guess it was not coincidental. One definitely spurred the other. And as it stands now, Iowa has secured their running backs in the 2024 recruiting class. Also, with one of these commitments in Brevin, it's either Dole or Dahl. Iowa, at least according to 247 Sports, but definitely most of the recruiting sites, has the majority of the top 10 and top 5 recruits in the state committed. Last I checked, according to, and I'll put the graphic up here in a moment. Iowa has 3 of the top 5 in-state, according to 247 Sports. Iowa has 3 of the top 5 in-state recruits committed, and I believe 6 or 7 of the top 10, which is impressive. Last year, for much of the year, I would say between Iowa and Iowa State, it was a very close battle for the in-state players. Now, of course, a lot of it is shaped by where most of the top recruits live, where they're from. Generally speaking, I would say if they go to a public school or live in the Ames or Des Moines area, they're probably going, especially right now with Iowa State being a decent program. And as I have shown you guys before, Iowa State is no slouch when it comes to spending money on recruiting. They spend more money on recruiting than Iowa does, if you guys can believe that. That's a fact, okay? And one of these days, I'll do a video showing you guys that. I showed it on Facebook. You can just Google Iowa Hawkeye football, how much they spend on recruiting, and you'll have a bunch of articles pop up, and you can see a list of all the Power 5 schools. And it's not even just this past year. It'll date it back all the way like 5 years ago. So, generally speaking, I would say usually Iowa still has an edge anywhere around the state compared to Iowa State. But in these times where Iowa State is uncharacteristically decent, and again, since they're spending a lot of money on recruiting more than Iowa, I would say in places like Des Moines and Ames, central Iowa, and even maybe a little bit more north, give or take, they will have an advantage on the recruiting scene, but not always. Like I said, that's only when Iowa State is decent. But when that's not the case, by and large, Iowa still holds the advantage. This is on 3's recruiting site. I'll show you guys 247 Sports. By the way, Iowa received commitments from Indiana running back Xavier Williams, more of a power runner, and in-state running back Brevin Dahl. I'm going to go with Brevin Dahl. As you guys can see here, according to On 3, Iowa has 3 of the top 5 in-state recruits. I am somewhat surprised they haven't offered Jacob Simpson yet. I think in most years they probably would have already done that. But they're pretty healthy at the tight end position currently. In the past 2 recruiting cycles, they've taken 2 tight ends. So they have 4 tight ends who are just freshmen and sophomores. So, they're in a pretty healthy position. They currently have in the upper classes, they have Luke Lachey, Eric All, and Steve Stelianos. So according to On3, they're a little bit lower on Cody Fox than the rest of the services are. Cody Fox, by the other 3 services, is a top 2 or 3 player in the state. I'll just click on his profile here real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. He was the first player to commit to the Iowa Hawkeyes, of course. And sometimes this actually hurts players' recruiting rankings because they commit to Iowa so early. And this happened with Aaron Graves as well. They commit to Iowa so early and they shut down recruiting, and they just continue to work at home and get better at. They don't continue going to camps, going to these showcases. So they don't have a ton of exposure once they commit to the Hawkeyes, and it ends up hurting their recruiting ranking, because a lot of the recruiting rankings is just how recently have you been seen by the recruiting services. So as you guys can see here, 247 Sports has him as the 3rd best player. ESPN has him as the 2nd. All 3 of these services have him as a 4-star. Rivals has him as the number 1 player in the state. Now, of course, this is about Brevin Dahl and Xavier Williams. So Iowa has 3, 4, 5. They have 5 of the top 10 currently. I believe I said this in the previous video. I believe Preston Reese is a top 10 player. He is by the other recruiting services. On3 just is not as high on him. And it's just a give and take. I mean, Brevin Dahl, we'll click on his profile here. On3 is actually higher on him than the other services are. They see him as damn near a 4-star running back. So this is who the Hawkeyes are getting. He's definitely a speedster, which is what the Iowa Hawkeyes decided to do here. They decided to get a more traditional running back, a bruiser, more of a physical runner, and they decided to get a speedster. And that's really been a I would say a tactic of theirs for the past couple of years. I don't think sometimes they'll take running backs in the same class that are similar in running styles, but they try to have them complement each other, which I think is a good idea. Let's take a look here. 247 Sports sees him as a high 3-star. Rivals sees him as a mid 3-star. Now, of course, the other big element to this, I'm going to pull up Xavier Williams here. Another big element to this is Titus Cram. You guys may know him. He is, I've said this in previous videos. With recruiting, especially in the state of Iowa, there's always the initial crop of guys that played varsity sports as freshmen and sophomores. So they have the exposure and they get the rankings and they get the offers first. And then you have the rest of the guys that come in later. Titus Cram was a part of that first group of prospects. And Iowa was in on him very, very early. He was they were one of his very first offers, and he is very high on Iowa. And it's become very obvious that Iowa decided to just say, you know what? We like him, but we like this other guy here, Xavier Williams. Either way, we're good. Whichever one we get, we're good. And I think my guess, the thinking there would be that in the past, Iowa would only offer one guy and put all their eggs in the basket of getting that one guy. And basically they would do that as to show that guy that they believed in him, and in hopes that would increase their ability to land said prospect's commitment. And as we've seen with Caden Proctor in the previous recruiting cycle, sometimes that really bites you in the rear, because if you're left high and dry, that's why they call it all your eggs in one basket. You're screwed. You don't have any other prospects. You haven't built any other relationships, and there's just not enough time. It's done. So I think that's what they've done. I it's pretty much over. They're not. I don't think they're going to land the commitment of Titus Cram. I believe they're only going to take 2 running backs in this recruiting cycle. 3 running backs in 1 recruiting cycle would be quite a lot. Now, who knows? Maybe they see Titus Cram more as a defensive back or a wide receiver, and perhaps that's what they sell to him, is that if he commits to Iowa, he won't be committing to Iowa as a pure running back, but rather a guy that they get and put him wherever they feel is the best position for him to be successful. So let's just take a look at Xavier Williams 247 Sports here. Okay. Not sure why that's not working. I just want to show you guys how well Iowa is doing in recruiting in the state of Iowa. They're totally kicking Iowa State's butts. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Iowa, 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 Iowa. They literally have 6 of the top 7 guys in the state committed, and they are in great position for Grant Bricks. He didn't grow up a Hawkeye fan, but again, Iowa is O-line U. And plus I think they can sell him on going to play college with a lot of the in-state talent that they've already had committed. A lot of these guys can work on Grant Bricks now. Reese Vanderzee, I would say Iowa is the leader for his commitment at this point, especially with his teammate committing to the Iowa Hawkeyes a year earlier, Zach Lutmer. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. It's good to see Iowa shoring up their recruiting class so early. This is shaping up to be a top, I would say, 35 recruiting class. I think as long as they can be a top 40, top 35 recruiting class, that'll be good. If they're lucky, they might creep into the top 30, which I think would be excellent. In my eyes, the goal for the Hawkeyes should always just be to be a top 40 recruiting class. As long as they're around there, it's fine, because they are, at the end of the day, they're a developmental program anyway. So, and top 40 is still respectable, and you can do a lot with that, especially when you're a developmental program. Right now, as it stands, they're 17th. Let's see where they're at in the state, and then we will wrap this up here. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, yeah, here we go. Big Ten. Ohio State 1, Michigan 2, Penn State 3, Minnesota 4. They just have more commitments than the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa 5 and Wisconsin 6. All right, guys, be sure to like, comment, share. Definitely subscribe. Want to get to 2,000 subs by the time the next season rolls around. I'm definitely going to have you guys covered for the spring game that comes up here this weekend. So definitely be looking for that. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, Willow. In facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.